Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS. This is Ukraine War Frontline update for the 16th of November 2023. Just to let you know that the key to the map is on the screen at the moment. If you want to pause the video, then you can check out what the lines mean. Another sort of housekeeping thing to say is that JR has updated the Brady Afric fortification lines that were in pastel yellow. So these are now proper updated lines, but I can't work out how to change the color back to that pastel yellow, which I think was more useful than a dark red. That is probably my technological ineptitude. And so bear that in mind. Hopefully that color will change to the more contrasting yellow going forward. Anyway, let's go to look at the northeastern sector from Kupiansk to Svatova to Kreminna. And as you can see, according to Andrew Perpetua, some minor gains for the Russians around this northern Volodymyrivka. I'm saying that northern because there's, as we saw the other day, there's three of them in the general area, and the northern Berestova as well. Anyway, whatever. That's near Krokmalna here, and yeah, I guess northwest of Svatova. So the Russians having some joy there with small gains along quite a long part of that front line. Let's see how far that is. So that's give or take sort of 4 kilometers worth of gains wide and a little bit inwards. If you go to the ISW Institute for the Study of War, there's still lots of positions being talked about: Liman Pesci, Makivka, Sinkivka, Nadia, Serebiansky Forest. So lots of places where there are repelled attacks. It is a very active front line, even though there's only one area where one side has gained over the other, territorially speaking. So we go on south there to Bakhmut, where we can see a little bit of gainers according to Syriac maps for the Russians in the Dubovo-Vasilivka area, moving on a wee sort of margin from previous lines for the Russians, as I say, north of Bakhmut. And we'll come on to speak about the south in a second. Let's just go to a few of the sources. And the Institute for the Study of War, the American military think tank, says a Kremlin-affiliated mill blogger claimed that unspecified Russian VDV elements as paratroopers active, so more of their elite troops, although these days I don't think you can really say that easily because they've been degraded so much that the force, as they get reconstituted, the force quality is degraded, because it would have been the case that the VDV would have taken the top elements of conventional forces that have already been trained, take them in and say, right, we're going to take the cream of the cream off you. You guys are really good, so we're going to take you into the VDV. Nowadays, in the middle of the war, it's kind of reconstituting lost troops with mobilized troops that aren't necessarily the cream of the cream. So they arguably aren't what at least they originally were cracked up to be. Anyway, they are operating around Bakhmut. Elements are attempting to regain lost positions and advanced 500 meters in unspecified areas south of Bakhmut. Well, we have seen that. That probably does represent what we saw the other day in terms of some fairly consistent and in the end quite a large increase in gained territory for the Russians south of the Bakhmut reservoir and west of Yahidna. Anyway, Russian mill bloggers also claimed that Russian forces advanced in forest areas near Klishchivka and gained a foothold on the settlement's northern outskirts. Russian mill bloggers also claim that Russian and Ukrainian forces are actively fighting for control of key heights near Klishchivka, and claim that Ukrainian forces still hold the key heights west of the settlement. Okay, so let's go and have a look at that. Here is Klishchivka, just south of Bakhmut, where we have the railway that curls around to the north. The idea here is that the Russians may well have some kind of presence in the very northern outskirts. A few of the, essentially destroyed houses, the rubble that remains there. A few of the northern houses in Klishchivka, and then they are fighting in the forest, I presume, is this area to the north here, where the Russians have had some successes according to Syriac maps, and you can see that they are trying to push, according to that Russian source, southwards along the heights, and that would be towards these entrenchments, fortifications on the hill above Klishchivka. So that confirms that the Russians are making a bid. Both sides are fighting over these heights but it could well be much more to the northwest of or north of the village of Klishivka. And then as we come further to the south, we can see, and I had to make a correction yesterday, so I couldn't work out why the source I said yesterday was saying that there was geolocation of Russian advances northeast of Avdiivka, but it seemed to be on the, as you were looking at the map, the left-hand side of the railway line. I was saying, look, on that picture, I was saying, look, here are the pieces, here are the water features that you can see, and the fighting was here. Anyway, it turns out that the source I was using had the map literally switched upside down, and you're thinking, who does that? Who put south at the top and north at the south? So that, I presume, that would have meant there was fighting around here rather than here where it was indicated, and that means that the Russians haven't, at least according to that source, gained access to Ukrainian land to the west of the railway line. So that's good. That all makes sense now. It's just that map yesterday was upside down. So that's a correction to my claims yesterday, but I was a little bit confused. So thank you for the many people that pointed that out. Okay, as you can see here, Avdiivka has some small gains for the Ukrainians to the east of Avdiivka, which is good news for the Ukrainians because they haven't really had any gains around the Bakhmut area for a number of days now, as the momentum appears to have shifted. Well, that's good there. The sources I have looking into the Bakhmut area, Tendar here says Russian troops have been trying to enter Klishivka for weeks, but it all ends in a similar way to this footage. They're getting blown up by mines, ATGMs or artillery. So the Russians are losing quite a lot of both personnel and equipment around the Bakhmut, well, particularly the Klishivka area. They are making some gains, but again, it's a little like Avdiivka and elsewhere. We see routinely the Russians make these gains on the back of huge costs to their own forces. Here, Fubi says Russian claimed that they repelled a breakthrough attempt at Horlivka, and actually that's something we're going to come on to in a second. So not too much more to say about this particular area of southern Bakhmut, but yeah, there is still a very active front around there. So we're now going to come down to between Avdiivka and Bakhmut, and somewhere that we haven't really talked about an awful lot. You got this larger settlement of Horlivka. There was talk, a rumor that Zelensky wanted to take Horlivka in the counteroffensive. It never happened because they just weren't in a position to be able to do so whatsoever. But it's interesting that there's potentially some Ukrainian gain as I say, between Bakhmut and Avdiivka at, I guess, the northwest of Horlivka. So Fubi here saying that Russians claim that they repelled a breakthrough attempt at Horlivka, and it shows shelling of Ukrainian positions. Interesting location. So Ukrainian positions are apparently here, as according to geolocation, which is right on the Russian defensive lines there. And if we go and look at Avdiivka, says all day Russians have been talking about Ukrainians attacking and capturing a waste heap near Shumy, near Toretsk. Vorenka, so that's a mill blogger, posted a video shelling Ukrainians in this same area. So that is by this area around here, possibly just there. So there is activity here. Well, what does Andrew say? He says you can see the video there, the activity. This is my geolocation. And although I'm not 100% certain of the location, I believe the shelling of the video hits roughly here. So you can see that sort of black area to the top there, what looks to be some kind of waste heap. So yeah, that is Avdiivka's geolocation, which matches the other one. The various Russian sources, he continues, are vaguely implying, although perhaps you disagree, that this shelling is where Ukrainians were pushed back to, meaning they may have advanced further at first and then fallen back, although no specific details. So this is again pushing forward potentially right in towards Russian defensive areas and then being pushed back, but still, quite again, as you can see, the Russian lines were out here. So that would be at least a kind of at least a kilometre gain, pretty much there or thereabouts. Or around that amount. So he says yesterday the armed forces, says Melinda, using Andrew Perpetua, entered the occupied territory, the territory that's been occupied since 2014 near Horlivka. So when the Ukrainians do this, it's generally noted a bit because that purple line has been in place since, indeed. Oh, what is going on with my browser? Sorry, have been in place since 2014. So that is significant and doesn't happen all that often. It's happened previously. Where was it? South of Krasnohorivka, which is south of Avdiivka, where the Ukrainians did make some gains around this area, I believe, and also a little bit, you can argue, around the Avdiivka area. So anyway, there's a lot of talk about Horlivka at the moment, partly because of that. Surya Maps talks about this today. An attempt by the Ukrainian army, to advance in Horlivka front took place, in which troops managed to cross the 2014 line and reached Chorna Kuranka, Cinnabarite Quarry. Although the attack was repulsed, it is significant that the Ukrainian troops broke through the fortified defence line on that front. So it doesn't appear like Surya Maps has changed their mapping at all, but I would suggest that at least the grey zone has been changed in that area, if not the Russians being pushed back. But actually, Andrew Perpetua having the Russians pushed back fits in line with Surya Maps there anyway. So we'll now come on to Avdiivka, where you can see there's quite a number of gains for the Russians around the city, particularly to the north and to the east. So here we have around Krasnohorivka, both north of Krasnohorivka and also northwest, the Russians making some gains. Deep State map confirming some of those gains, and some minor gains into Stepova, just into the east of that village, and then some minor gains here sort of southeast of Terrakon, of this waste heap. There were some claims that the Ukrainians might have been actually having some success around here, although I think it's been quite costly, this area, for both sides, the Ukrainians as well. And we can see up near Vesely, which doesn't get marked on the map, but up around here towards Kamyanka, the Russians making some gains as well. So a bad day at the office for the Ukrainians in this northern part of Avdiivka, which is quite a worry, since this is the area they desperately need to keep hold of if they want to keep hold of Avdiivka. There is talk about the coke plant very often. In analyses, the UK intelligence has pretty much said that the Ukrainians are looking to take the coke plant, but it will be very costly for them, the prediction is. And if they do, they will probably have success in taking Avdiivka, but as mentioned, it will come at quite a cost. Right. Just talking about that northern area around Toretsk and that Horlivka, the ISW does mention that and talk about geolocated gains there, so localized offensive. But anyway, as far as Avdiivka is concerned, the ISW says a Russian mill blogger claimed that Russian forces pushed Ukrainian forces from their positions near the waste heap north of Avdiivka, and that Russian forces seized at least 60% of the industrial area south of Avdiivka. Okay, so this is an area we haven't come to yet. This is in the industrial area just here that we talked about. We've talked about over the last few days. There are some Russian tanks that have been taken out in this area. The Russians are really pushing hard for this, to capture this industrial area. Claims that they control 60% of it is quite significant. Andrew Perpetua hasn't changed his mapping yet, but that might come along at a later point. We shall see. A mill blogger added that Russian forces advanced north of Pervomaisky and drove Ukrainian forces from unspecified treatment facilities southeast of the waste heap. So this is, I think those are two separate claims from ISW, because they also go on to say that there's no move around Severny. Well, that's kind of what north of Pervomaisky is. So anyway, somewhere around here, there might be some gains for the Russians, and then it talks about water treatment somewhere, I think, in this general area, but I'm not 100% sure where that is. I'm sure someone can let me know. Anyway, the ISW then says that driven Ukrainian forces from unspecified treatment facilities southeast of the Waist Steppe and consolidated control over Stepova's eastern outskirts by advancing along the railway track. So there's going to be somewhere around here will be water treatment. It could be this kind of. In fact, there it is. That's the water treatment. So that would be what Surat Maps is claiming, and that's what ISW is making sense of, and then mentioning the eastern areas of Stepova as well as advancing along the railway line. So it looks like the Russians really are amping up the pressure. The Mill blogger noted that Russian forces have not advanced towards Severny or Tonyanki and are not directly attacking Avdiivka or the Avdiivka coke plant. So there's a claim from some Russians that they haven't yet tried to attack there directly, even though there were rumours over the last few days that is taking place, and they haven't made any move towards Severny. That would be the more difficult of their actions. I'm pretty sure they're sort of waiting to put more and more pressure on the coke plant, maybe taking some of this area so that they can flank it rather than have to enter it in one particular position. But you can see that, I think the pressure is ramping up there, as I say, for the Ukrainians. Right, let's have a look at Surat Maps that puts that into their map here and tweeted it. In the northern axis, the Russian army has advanced along the railway, taking control over the 437-kilometer station and reaching the railway south of Novokonyove. Let's go and actually see that. So sorry, I prematurely sort of stopped up here. So here we have the wrong city. What am I doing? Here we have the railway line, and they appear to have moved up this railway line, taking these sort of smaller areas. There's a small station along here that they appear to have taken. Let's go and look at that on the map. That is a 437 station. That is just here. You can't really see anything, but I presume there is some kind of stop. These are possibly old bits of footage from 2018 still, so it's difficult to know what is definitely there now. On the eastern axis, the Russian army advanced south of the Terrakon Hill, taking control over the treatment facilities, while clashes with the Ukrainian army are taking place on the outskirts of the Dachas area, so that's by Kamyanka and Vasily. In the southeastern axis, the Russian army managed to control the first positions in the no man's land and some buildings of the Promka industrial area beyond the 2014 line. So this is good news for the Russians in taking some territory back there. Now, no report says no confirmed map changes in Avdiivka. It's reported that Ukrainian forces managed to retake some of the lost positions around Horlivka, but as of yet unconfirmed, and that would be in the exact area pretty much that Surat Maps had just said that the Russians have taken territory. Russian claims that they reached the Avdiivka coke plant are false. Attacks are conducted, but still without success, and showing that the Ukrainians are pushing as well by Opitny here. Indeed, as according to no reports, the Russians aren't in control of a lot of this area. It looks very different, no reports map. So if you see, this is a general sense of where the Russians are, and then go to no reports, it's very much a big gap there in the Russian defensive line compared to what is reported on my map. So a different sort of opinion there, I guess. Now we are going to come on to, actually we're going to go pretty much all the way down to Velika Novosilka. So there is quite a bit of activity still taking place along this line. Marinka is still really hot. But we are going to move on to Staromyniivka, which is around this area where it's been relatively quiet for the last really month, 6 weeks. But there have been a couple of days over the last week or so where activity has taken place. Now, I can't talk to exactly when this footage was recorded, but a column with Russian armored carriers was destroyed by the 58th Motorized Brigade, reportedly near Staromyniivka. That involves, as far as I remember it from this, is this the one with anti-tank mines and javelin? But anyway, Staromyniivka is down here. So it'd be interesting where that is exactly taking place. I don't have a geolocation there for that. that would be useful because if it's quite far behind line, that means behind the lines, it means that the Ukrainians are able to take out Russian vehicles and equipment quite a long way, like 3 to 4 kilometers behind the front line. But it does depend. Staromonievka could be the kind of landmark used for this whole sort of area. But yeah, Russians losing some equipment there. There's been no territorial changes as far as I am aware. So we come on to Robotyne, where there is a little bit to say. If we go to the ISW, prominent Russian mill blogger claimed that Ukrainian forces made some advances in an unspecified area in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast, but the Russian forces are already counterattacking to recapture the positions. Russian sources claimed that Russian forces repelled Ukrainian attacks near Robotyne and Kopani and near Verbove and Novofedorivka. Those are both to the north, so you've got Verbove, Novofedorivka, you've got Kopani here, and Robotyne, Novoprokopivka, these kind of areas there. Okay, another mill blogger claimed that the nature of fighting to the west of Robotyne is largely direct infantry contact. Russian mill bloggers noted that the inclement weather is impeding offensive operations in this area. So bad weather, infantry fighting in this area towards Kopani, as according to Russians. A Russian mill blogger claimed that Russian forces advanced 700 meters in a forest near Robotyne and on the outskirts of Piatikhatki on the November the 13th to 15th, and that Russian forces failed to suppress Ukrainian firing positions in the heights surrounding Piatikhatki after Russian forces entered there from the south. Now, I don't know what forest areas around Robotyne that would be, but we're talking about Piatikhatki as well. The idea that the Russians have entered Piatikhatki from the south is not something I've seen elsewhere, so I guess we'll wait to see if that turns out to be true or a load of rubbish. So the forest area could well be a forest area there near Piatikhatki, if that's at all relevant. Yes, so anyway, as far as no report says of this general area, we're going back to Novoprokopivka, Verbove, the Ukrainians have stepped up actions north of Novoprokopivka, attacking both the northern and northeastern outskirts with armoured vehicles. Minor improvements north of the settlement were made. It's likely a new push to capture Novoprokopivka is being prepared. We'll have to keep an eye out on that one to see whether the Ukrainians are going to keep the pressure on here to really seriously try and take territory and to force themselves across the defensive lines, or whether they have just properly culminated and run out of resources to commit to that. Right, and then we come down to the Kherson region, where you can see there are no changes to the mapping, but lots of conversation still about this general area. If we go to the ISW, they say Natalia Humanyuk, spokesperson for the Operational Command South, says that Ukrainian forces are pushing Russian forces 3 to 8 kilometers from the Dnipro's east bank in Kherson. The geographic extent of this described effort is significantly larger than what any available open source evidence currently shows. In other words, what Humanyuk is saying is not confirmed by any data that ISW have got hold of. Let's have a look at what that could mean in terms of distances. So 3 to 8 kilometers, well, it depends where you take the bank of the Dnipro. Actually, if we go right back here rather than kind of after these marshy islands and as we get to the more solid shore near Pidstepny, if we take it from back there and go 3 to 8 kilometers, well, what's that? That is 13 kilometers, so it's clearly not that far, but 8 kilometers is almost to the road behind Pidstepny. 3 kilometers is where the lines pretty much are at the moment. At least that's what it is in that area. 8 kilometers really does sound very charitable to the Ukrainians. My personal thoughts is they're finding it increasingly harder around here as the Russians are probably bringing in their defensive forces because they're worried about this Kherson area. So that is 8 kilometers, give or take, from the bank. Have they got that far? I mean, you might see a deep reconnaissance group active somewhere like that, but the reality is I think that's probably overblown from Humanyuk personally. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. As No Report says, in the Kherson Krinky area, Russia once again tried to dislodge Ukrainians from Krinky, but failed. Based on Russian reports, the Ukrainians managed to advance slightly westward towards Kozachyi-Lahiri. Unconfirmed reports from the Ukrainians that they are also trying to expand again to Korsunka, but that does need confirmation. Okay, so in other words, if we go and look on my map here, and that's using some kind of geolocation, that is to say that they are expanding towards Kozachyi-Lahiri, which is what we heard yesterday. They're possibly trying to expand a little bit towards Korsunka. There was some ideas that may be an objective for them going forward. And the Russians have tried to recapture lost territory and are attacking. They're doing their own counterattacks. Here we have a wounded Russian is finished off by drone drop from the 37th Marines and Marchenko Sviata drone group in Krinky. Right, we'll geolocate that in a second, but this is based on, so that's Krinky. I'm just going to go back to the ISW. So it says geolocated footage published on the 14th shows that Russian forces made some advances into Krinky, and that's what that's talking about. Russian mill bloggers claim that Russian forces counterattacked and forced Ukrainian forces to withdraw from some areas south of Krinky, near Kozachyi-Lahiri, and near the Antonivsky Bridge, but ISW is unable to confirm these claims. Okay. So that is that the Russians have been counterattacking here, and part of the evidence is this geolocated confirmation that at least that Russian soldier is in this position, was wounded, and then had an IED dropped on him. And that is sort of within the grey zone, as according to both mappers. But it does make you sort of realise that there's probably very little of Krinky that is robustly under control of the Ukrainians, as they're trying to push into there. The Russians are trying to counterattack, and it's probably the Ukrainians are probably more robustly up to this outer road there, and the Russians are back here somewhere, and the whole town is effectively a grey zone. Anyway, the ISW continues. Ukrainian military observer Mashevets has stated that Russian forces are likely developed a plan to eliminate Ukrainian positions on the East Bank by forming 3 tactical groups. He stated that Russian forces plan to use 2 groups to flank the Oleshki-Novokakovka road and the Krinky area from the Korsunka and Kozachyi-Lahiri areas, while the 3rd group will attack south of Krinky and advance north. So let's put that onto the map. We've got 3 groups. I assume that means one group is going to attack up here, one group is going to attack down here, and the other group is going to come up from here. So I guess fairly obvious tactics there. Nonetheless, that is what Mashevets has said. The Wall Street Journal, citing Ukrainian soldiers who fought on the East Bank, reported that Russian forces are employing heavy mines infiltration tactics, snipers and heavy artillery, multiple launch rocket systems, and airstrikes to defend against Ukrainian advances on the East Bank. So what we were hearing about the pretty, I guess, not incoherent defences here, but it was chaotic. They were suffering with electronic warfare. They were unable to bring to bear much of their heavy equipment like main battle tanks because they were getting hit by drones and whatnot behind the lines. The logistics are being hit. They didn't have the reserves, etc., etc. Well, actually, they've been able to hold the Ukrainians here, give or take, for the last week, giving them time to. And this seems to be what the Russians do quite well, which is when the Ukrainians do look like they're making gains, and we've seen this up in all of these sectors, they will hold on just about long enough for their reserves to be brought in and for equipment to get there. So it could be that we're starting to see Russian heavy equipment being utilized more. We're starting to see more possibly artillery being brought to bear. Aviation we know is being used in the area, so they're still using a lot of FAB 500s and similar, or 250s, these glide bombs that are hammering the Ukrainian positions where they've got their bridgeheads. So it's going to be difficult for the Ukrainians. The Russians are obviously not going to want to let the Ukrainians get a serious bridgehead to allow them to start making these moves towards Crimea or in some kind of pincer movement with what's going on in Robotyne. But the question will then be, are they bringing forces from elsewhere, weakening elsewhere in order to do that, to plug those gaps? Right, that's today's Frontline update. It is Is it a mixed bag? I think the Russians are still pressuring in all the places we know they are, like Bakhmut and Avdiivka, obviously, on the Kupiansk line in multiple places. It's good to see the Ukrainians have some success both around Avdiivka, south of Bakhmut, but also Horlivka. That's not nothing we were expecting to see. That could give the Russians something to think about. But it's still all to play for, on the Dnipro River, and the Russians certainly appear to be stabilizing that front somewhat, but I guess we'll see over the next few days. Anyway, take care, speak soon, toodle pips.